Tonight, desperate measures. Russian President Vladimir Putin increasing attacks on non-military targets to reignite his stalling war in Ukraine.
We've seen deliberate targeting of cities and towns and civilians.
Plus, historic hearings. The president's pick for the nation's first black woman Supreme Court justice.
And transgender victory.
Men will always swim 8 to 12% faster than women. They have larger lung capacity, they have larger skeleton.
Swimmer Leah Thomas takes to the pool with repercussions for women's sports. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Ukraine rejects Russia's demand to surrender, even as Putin tries to ruthlessly pound Ukrainians into submission. Welcome to Faith Nation from our Washington News Bureau. I'm John Jess.
And good evening, I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, Russia's war in Ukraine is stalling on the ground as Russian troops face fierce resistance from Ukrainian forces. This as Vladimir Putin, who's looking more frustrated and cornered by the day, says Russian relations with the U.S. are on the verge of breaking. The autocrat citing President Biden's comment calling Putin a war criminal.
Meanwhile, Putin is stepping up missile attacks and airstrikes on civilian targets, with unconfirmed reports of forcibly deporting Ukrainian residents to Russia. That's prompted comparisons to concentration camps from American officials. At the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken implored the world to remember the genocide of European Jews during World War II.
The Kremlin has tried to justify this war by falsely claiming that it's intervening to stop genocide, abusing the term that we reserve for the gravest atrocities, disrespecting every victim of this heinous crime.
Secretary of State Blinken adding that each day of Putin's brutal war against Ukraine brings more deadly attacks, along with the deaths of innocent men, women, and children. And here with us now from Kyiv, Ukraine, is our very own George Thomas, CBN News senior international correspondent. George, good to see you. Reports are on day 26 of Putin's war in Ukraine, Russian ground forces are still stalled as they inch closer to Kyiv. What does it signal to you that Russia is relying more heavily on missile attacks against civilian targets?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the playbook, right? So they've not managed to hold any significant major city in the country except for Kherson down in the south. Look, the Ukrainians are pushing them back further and further. In fact, guys, tonight at 8 p.m. local time, a curfew is being imposed until Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And the last time they did this, which was last week, the Ukrainians took the curfew time to push the Russians back even further from the capital city. They pounded the areas of Irpin and Bucha, and the reporting was that they pushed them back at least 70 kilometers from the capital. So it'll be interesting to see if we see a similar military operation, a counter-offensive, but that's exactly what they're doing. And so what the Ukrainians also are concerned about is that the Russians are positioning themselves in an area where they can at least fire missile and artillery into the capital city. And what the Ukrainians want to do is make sure that that artillery or missile doesn't land in the city. And so they were, they're doing these counterinsurgency operations, counteroffensive operations to push the Russians back even further.
George, the southeastern port city of Mariupol has been devastated, as you know, by the Russian forces. We know one of the main objectives of Russia in all of this is to establish a land bridge from Russia to Crimea. How close is Russia to achieving that goal?
Yeah, they're very close, guys. I mean, about 40,000 people have managed to escape from the city of Mariupol. Unfortunately, some 300,000 people are stuck with no water, no electricity, and they've been pounded over the last three weeks. Look, I've been telling you guys and our audience from the very beginning that the annexation of Crimea is huge a toll economically for the Russians. And so they were paying billions of dollars per year to bring in fresh water and to bring in supplies into the Crimea. And so that's why you're seeing them engaged, not just in Mariupol. In fact, today they launched an attack on Odessa, another major port city here in the south. And so if they take Mariupol, they, in essence, have that land bridge. They don't have to go through the Sea of Azov anymore. They can just drive across on land to Crimea. That would be huge, absolutely huge. The other thing I'm watching, guys, is the port of Odessa. 70% of all the imports coming into Ukraine come through the port, the two ports, Mariupol and Odessa. 60% of those imports transit through Odessa. And so if Odessa falls, oh my goodness, that's going to really cut Ukraine off economically from the sea.
You're talking about people being cut off from the basic essentials and food and water, forcing perhaps devastation. George, in the few seconds we have left, what do you make of unconfirmed reports that the Russian army is forcibly deporting Ukrainians to Russian territory?
Yeah, that's what the mayor of Mariupol said, that Ukrainians trapped in the city were taken to Russian territory. The mayor of the city said it harkened back to the Nazi time period, where Nazis were marched over to death camps and to concentration camps. Again, we're not able to confirm those reports, but it wouldn't surprise me because, look, they're trapped in that area, and the only way out is to head east into Russian territory.
Wow. All right, George Thomas in Kyiv, Ukraine. George, thank you so much. Stay safe.
You're welcome.
Well, back here in Washington, a historic day on Capitol Hill as the Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Judge Katanji Brown Jackson got underway.
In its 230-year history, Jackson is the first black woman to be considered for the High Court. Today's hearings, consisting of statements from Senate Judiciary Committee members, introductions, and then words from Judge Jackson herself. CBN senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener joins us with what lawmakers are saying about the president's pick on day one. Tara?
Well, John, some but not all Republicans have stated opposition to Jackson. Still, Senate Democrats should have enough votes to confirm her without their help. If President Biden has his way, Judge Katanji Brown Jackson will be the first black woman on the High Court.
I must also pause to reaffirm my thanks to God, for it is faith that sustains me at this moment. Even prior to today, I can honestly say that my life has been blessed beyond measure.
Democrats say the 51-year-old mother of two is the most heavily vetted Supreme Court nominee in 30 years, having already been confirmed twice by the full Senate for other roles and sitting down with more than 40 senators.
And I'm fully confident you'll serve Americans from all walks of life, all backgrounds, fairly and faithfully.
The most important thing that I look for is the nominee's view of the law.
As the hearings got underway, Republicans brought up her rulings on child porn as a trial judge. Senator Josh Hawley charging she has a history of letting child predators off easy.
Why she's sentenced below the federal guidelines, why she's sentenced below what the government's recommendations were in child porn cases in particular.
Other Republicans are also concerned about her position on court packing, record on terror cases, and more.
I'm also interested, as others have mentioned, in your opinion, why pro-abortion, dark money groups like Demand Justice and anti-religious liberty groups are pouring millions of dollars into a public campaign in support of your nomination.
Confirmation of Judge Jackson to replace retiring Justice Stephen Breyer would not shift the court's ideological balance, although it's a crucial moment for Jackson and the Biden presidency. Democrats praising Jackson for her record on abortion, climate change, and gun control.
One thing in particular stands out to me, and that's your commitment to uphold justice under the law.
Barring a significant misstep or surprise, the slim Democrat majority hoped to wrap up her confirmation before Easter. While it could be a contentious week, Senator Lindsey Graham says Republicans will be far more civil than Democrats were during proceedings for Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett.
And the one thing I can promise you, you will not be vilified, you will not be attacked for your religious views, you will not be accused of something that you could not defend yourself against until it was too late.
And over the next 2 days, senators will get a chance to grill the nominee and scrutinize her work as well. President Biden is hoping for at least some bipartisan support to shore up the court's credibility. John and Jenna.
All right, Tara, thank you. CBN News senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergner. And joining us now, Hans von Spakovsky, the senior fellow in the Mies Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation. Hans, welcome. Always good to have you on the show. So today we saw those opening statements from senators. Tomorrow we'll get into the question and answer portion of the hearings. What kind of questioning do you expect Judge Jackson to face?
Well, I don't think she'll get any tough questions from Democrats, but Republicans have a lot to question her about, particularly given her record on everything from the criminal cases that she handled to her support for critical race theory and, for example, the fact that she is on the board of overseers of Harvard University, which has a case before the Supreme Court because it is engaging in racial discrimination in its admissions policy, something she clearly approved of as a member of that board.
Hans, a religious law and liberty expert at Pepperdine Law School wrote that Judge Jackson has a, quote, relatively standard and progressive commitment to the legal protections afforded faith in public life, and he concluded that her expressed commitments to church and state won't unsettle the court's current First Amendment doctrine. Hans, how do you expect Judge Jackson to approach issues of the law when it comes to religion?
See, I don't think that assessment is accurate. I think if you look at her cases that she handled as a judge, if you also look at amicus briefs that she filed, it's clear that she may not actually support, for example, the independence of churches and making employment and other decisions about ministers. She also apparently has suggested that she believes that if religious schools are accepting federal money, that the government can tell them what to do when it comes to allowing them to discriminate, for example, on the basis of race, the way Harvard has. So I don't think that she will be, based on her record, a big supporter of the religious freedom rights under the First Amendment.
Yeah, pro-life groups are opposing Judge Jackson's nomination to the court, to the Supreme Court, even though she's never actually ruled on any abortion cases herself. Why that opposition, Hans, and what might we expect from her on the issue of abortion?
Well, when she was in private practice, she authored an amicus brief on behalf of NARAL, in which, if you can believe this, she argued that there should be no First Amendment rights for individuals who are peacefully protesting against abortion around abortion clinics. So in other words, she thinks that should be in a First Amendment-free zone because of the issue of abortion. Yet when she was a judge, she threw out Washington, D.C.'s anti-panhandling law, saying it was a violation of the First Amendment. You cannot reconcile those two views of the First Amendment, except that the fact that she is so pro-abortion that she doesn't think the First Amendment should apply in that situation.
All right, we have to leave it there, but Hans von Spakovsky with the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much, and we will watch as these hearings go on. Thank you.
Thanks, Hans.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, a transgender swimmer is making waves, not just in the water, the ripples through the pool, and the repercussions for women's sports when Fake Nation returns.
Back over the weekend, Leah Thomas became the first known transgender athlete to win a Division I championship. Thomas, who formerly competed on the men's swim team at the University of Pennsylvania, began racing against women last fall.
While Thomas won the women's 500-yard freestyle and worldwide attention, the University of Pennsylvania is now the subject of a Title IX civil rights complaint for allowing Thomas to compete against women. CBN senior national affairs correspondent Heather Sells joins us with the story. Heather.
Yeah, John and Jenna, Title IX was established 50 years ago to protect women, and now those rights are being challenged all over again.
Thomas wins the NCAA championship.
A historic first. Transgender athlete Leah Thomas won the 500 freestyle last Thursday, beating Virginia's Emma Wyant by more than a second. This, despite never even qualifying for the Division I championships during his 3 seasons on the UPenn men's team.
I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for this meet. I was just happy to be here, trying to race and compete as best as I could.
Since Thomas began competing against women, much of the swim world has either publicly supported him or protested anonymously. His NCAA championship, however, has thrust him and the issue further into the spotlight, leading to a more public outcry.
They can't cancel all of you.
Some calling on women swimmers not to compete. One father tweeting that standing up for the integrity of women's sports does not make one transphobic. A Swimming World magazine editorial called the competition a charade and blamed the NCAA's rules. And a 500 freestyle swimmer who came in 17th and missed the top 16 allowed in the finals became the first swimmer to call out the NCAA. Rika Georgi says that while she respects Thomas, it is disrespectful for trans athletes to compete against women. Also, Concerned Women for America announced a civil rights complaint under Title IX with the U.S. Department of Education against UPenn.
And it can't be allowed that one side says, shut up, you're a bigot. There are real tensions and rights here, and we have to work it out as a nation.
The NCAA turned down a CBN News interview request today and pointed to recent policy statements which promise fairness, inclusion, and safety for all who compete. Whether or not it changes its current rules may depend on who keeps speaking up. Nance says that Thomas may have unleashed a new wave of parents who won't keep quiet.
All the swim moms that are up at 5 in the morning driving their daughters to the pool are saying, what was it all for? You're seeing all these students, these student athletes, these young women saying, how can I compete against a biological man?
John and Jenna, Thomas competed in 2 other events with a 5th place tie and an 8th place finish. That wraps up his collegiate career, but he has told Sports Illustrated he's got his eye on the 2024 Olympics. And again, all of this coming on the 50th anniversary of Title IX.
All right, Heather Sells, thank you so much. Still ahead, millions of refugees fleeing Ukraine for safe harbor in other countries. How a group of children made a harrowing escape to Israel.
Welcome back. Israel is opening its arms to Ukrainian Jews, recently welcoming a plane load of children after their harrowing escape.
They arrived just in time to celebrate Purim, a holiday marking the deliverance of the Jewish people from an evil plot to destroy them. CBN's Chris Mitchell has the story from Jerusalem.
These children are celebrating the Jewish holiday of Purim here at Netzarim outside Jerusalem. This is normally a place where youth groups and others come to hike and enjoy nature. But over the last few weeks, Netzarim welcomed about 150 Jewish refugees fleeing the war in Ukraine. Many of them are children who came without parents.
The same second that I heard the alarm, I heard a missile fall and heard that the children woke up and were crying. God gave me the thought, send the children out now.
That was 5 a.m. at 12 o'clock noontime. All the kids and the 3 families that were working with them were on a bus towards the Carpathian Mountains, bringing them further away from the battleground.
Rabbi Shlomo Wilhelm and his wife Esther have led the Jewish community in Zhytomyr, Ukraine for the last 27 years. Their work includes the Alamim Center, a children's home and social center for parents and children.
It was a miracle that we could get out with all the children. They were without passports, without permissions from their parents, and everyone got out to the last one.
Some of the kids had no passports. Some of the kids, they got the parents to WhatsApp a copy of a handwritten permission that they're allowing us to take the kids. But because it's wartime, so rules were flexible, and that's how we got all the kids out and into Israel.
Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett greeted the community as they arrived. They are now staying at Netzarim thanks to the KKL Jewish National Fund.
Within 48 hours, we changed the character of the center. The people that work here for volunteers from Keren Kayemet to Israel. We started to put closets together in the rooms to make them suitable for a long-term stay. that they would be suited for children, something that for sure isn't here usually.
Manager Gili Maimon says the response has been overwhelming.
We've received many requests to volunteer, also to donate things, clothes, toys, gift baskets, also many professional people, teachers that want to help and come teach Hebrew.
This year's annual Purim party for nearby communities was even more special. Costumes, food, clowns, and games were part of the festive event. And it included a reading of the biblical book of Esther and its story of God delivering the Jewish people from a plot to destroy them in ancient Persia. Maimon says it's a privilege to serve the new arrivals.
It's also fun to educate the children. They are very appreciative, very attentive, very loving. We are trying to give them the feeling of being at home and of fun.
While Israel is ready for the newcomers to stay, their future is still uncertain.
It's a wonderful place where they've been very hospitable to us and all our needs, and it's a beautiful nature, but it's not a place where we can live long term.
Malki Bouquet is director of the Alumim Center.
We're just trying a lot of different things. In a different situation, we will see what's going on, how the war is continuing or ending, and what happens in Ukraine in the next day.
Esther says that while they are living a life of contradictions, a good attitude will see them through.
We need to know that there are things we have to take care of, things we have to do to think about the future, but at the same time, to try to stay positive, stay happy, celebrate Purim in the best way we can, because there's a saying that joy breaks through barriers.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
I love that saying. Thank you, Chris. Coming up, Christmas comes early at the Polish border.
Finally tonight, the gift of good cheer as thousands of refugees crossed over from Ukraine to Poland. A special guest was waiting to welcome them.
At the Medica border crossing, it was Christmas in March, where Santa Claus greeted Ukrainian children, and a Polish volunteer handed out gifts to the young refugees.
They are coming here, I see his face, the world is sad, but I won't give him the 5-10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, smiling, thinking about the toys, about the Nicholas, not about the war.
The man behind the good cheer, giving out stuffed animals and smiles, doing what he can to make the plight of thousands a little brighter. And look at those smiles on those faces, everyone doing what they can out there.
Yeah, a nice little distraction from all of the chaos that we're seeing.
So needed. Well, thank you so much for watching this edition of Faith Nation.
That's going to do it for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.